Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome to another episode of Cornerstone Quick Tips. My name is Josh Donnelly, and in today's episode, we are going to take a very quick look at Dynamic Content 2.0 and the introduction of Twig. Now, first and foremost, you need to know that you need to be running PHP 8.1 or later for this to be enabled on your site. So once you have that updated on your site, then you can jump into your global settings here, go into options, and scroll all the way down to the bottom where you'll see we have Twig Beta. We're going to go ahead and enable this, and immediately you're going to notice some extension settings here. We're going to go ahead and just leave these on default for now. We'll talk about those another day. But with that said, we now have activated Twig on our site. So what does that mean and how does that work? Well, let's dive in. So here on the page, we're going to go ahead and start from scratch. In column 1, let's go ahead and just add a text element here. And in our text element here, we'll go ahead and open this up. And you'll notice that if we erase this here and open up our dynamic content and we scroll all the way down to the bottom here, you'll notice that we now have our new Twig specific dynamic content here. Now, if you aren't seeing this after activating Twig in your global options, you may need to refresh the builder so that that populates in here. But this gives us access to some standard Twig items like math and filters and functions and other items. But the best part comes in what Twig is actually able to do. And there's a lot of documentation on Twig. There's also some great Cornerstone documentation here that talks about how to utilize Twig within your sites. But like I said, we are simply going to scratch the surface here to simply explore the power of Twig at the surface level. And you might be saying, Josh, why don't we go deeper? And the true answer is because I'm still learning how to go deeper with it myself. So we are simply going to scratch the surface. So what we can do here is we can actually perform math functions, right? So we could come in here, we could type in double curly 1 plus 1. And as soon as we do that, you'll notice that the answer that it gives us right here is 2. If I did 150 plus 1, it would give us 151. Now, I'm doing something simple here, but it is able to process some pretty complex math. But we can actually take this a step further. We can actually enter standard dynamic content that we're used to into our Twig dynamic content here. So you could have 2 ACF fields that you pull through and add together. Or in my case, what I'm going to do is actually click on this text element. We'll open up our parameters here, and we're going to keep this very simple. We're going to just go ahead and add 2 parameters. We're going to add parameter 1. We'll call this number 1, and this is a field type text label number 1. Okay? And as soon as I do that, you'll notice over here we have params now, and we have number 1. And I'm going to add a comma here, and then I'm simply, just to keep things very simple, going to paste this below, and we'll just change number 1 to number 2 and number 2. So what I'm going to do is in number 1, I'm going to add 50, and in number 2, I'm going to add 100. And then I'm going to jump into our primary content here, and instead of 150 plus 1, I'm going to type DCP number 1. Okay, so now I'm pulling through that parameter for number 1, and you'll notice it says 50. So now I could come in here and I could type plus, and then we'll do double curlies DCP number 2. And as soon as I do that, you'll notice we now have a total of 150. Let's go ahead and make this just a little bit larger so you guys can see this here. So we have 150 as our answer to our number 1 of 50 and number 2 of 100. Let's say we change 100 to 575. This immediately calculates a new number for us of 625. We could change our 50 to 23, and it immediately updates that number as well. So maybe we have something like 100 as our first value and 5 as our second value, but we want to use multiplication. We can simply change this plus to a multiplication symbol, and now we have that easily multiplied. Now again, this is very rudimentary, but the sky is truly the limit, and I would recommend that you take a look at some of the documentation here, and then also at the Twig documentation over on the twig.symphony.com site, which helps explain some of this stuff in even more detail. But we can get pretty sophisticated with this right here using some very standard mathematics. Now again, I'm using this in parameters, but you could be pulling this from ACF fields, from other plugins, whatever data or metadata that you have access to, you can then pull into your Dynamic Content 2.0 and then manipulate that data inside of the dynamic content. As always, I hope you guys find these videos useful, and I will see you guys in the next video. Happy building!